Hello and welcome to the mid-season review slash hype stream for the American Richie Mahjong League. I am Tucker, also known as Ennui. We have our broadcast director tonight is Jeremy, who has put in a lot of work to show us what has been going on in the ARML so far these first three sessions. And I am joined tonight by Michael. How you doing, Mike?
Doing pretty well. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm doing okay. I got a nap today, and honestly, that's all my body needed.
That's great. Well, today we're going to look a little bit at where we've been, where we're at, and where we're going in the summer season of ARML. So we're going to start
And
off with B3 here.
and you can see that B3 just has so many friggin' players in it. We had such a huge influx of new joins to the ARML that we can't even see the whole list all at once. So we have it split in two here. The top 11 players from B3 will promote into B2 for next season, and there is no lower division to rank down into. Of course, there, according to the number of signups, there could be another beta league type situation, but there will be no automatic demotion should another pool be added. But at the very least, we can see what things look like here. What jumps out at you with just the standings in front of us?
Um, it honestly looks pretty even. Like the distribution looks. Some of the other divisions, as we'll see, there are big gaps or there are things that look a little weird, but this looks pretty normal. The positive negative line is between 19 and 20, which isn't too bad. It's not exactly at the middle, but it's not too far off. Um, what
Yeah,
pops out at you?
the math teacher in me would like to point out that since there are so many people in this division, that's probably part of why we have a much more clean distribution. Since
Hmm.
we have more people splitting all of the points, they naturally kind of end up a little bit more evenly divided. One of the things that jumps out to me is that despite the top of the league, we have four people above 100 in B3 here. The only person that I see on the entire list with zero last places is Michael V in 14th place.
Oh, that's true. I didn't catch that. I guess, yeah, I guess it's just all of those thirds just aren't really those could be positive or they could be pretty negative. It's hard to say without actually having seen, the detailed logs, but that is an interesting find there.
Yeah, and right out of the gate, that's a big reminder that ladder and league play do not work the same. Last place avoidance is not enough to promote you into the ARML, as we can see. Getting all of those big firsts or getting the best UMA when you end up in third or second is very, very important as we play through. And I think we do have a clip to show before we dive into the more granular statistics here.
Here we go.
That's no. This is the wrong weight. I think this is the wrong weight.
Well, there's a 1-1.
Oh my god, it does come
What
out.
was that? Richi Ipatsu Doratsu. That's a Hanuman. 18,000.
Ah!
Two Baimon! Yes! Chitoy gods have delivered. Here we go.
That's no.
And that incredible Cheetoy won by Robert, who is actually a sub in B3 this season. That is why if you notice the stats in the top right are listed as NA for them, but still an absolutely incredible win and has been contributing to the great mahjong that we've seen so far this season.
What a comeback from 5,000 points all the way up to second in one blow.
And
Um,
and to put yourself, almost unreachable from last as long as you avoid the same fate that they just encountered.
they call Chichoy the shortcut to Hanuman, but If it's Ipatsu and you have 2 Dora and 2 Uradora, it is also the shortcut to Baimon, apparently. So
And so now if we look at the overall stats here, you can actually see Robert's stats here as well, even though they are a sub. But I mean, these stats at the top half of the division are pretty telling. I mean, look at these win rates. They are just absolutely bananas. 28%, 26%, 25%, two
yeah,
24s in the early teens.
the top 3 players having those low deal-in rates too, and just those like massive 900 or 1,000 EVs. I think this is one case where you can really see the EV placement correlating pretty strongly with ranking here.
Oh yeah, for sure. It kind of just goes straight down. One exception is fifth and sixth. And if you look at Jocelyn in fifth place there, that 81.3% participation rate. One way to get yourself into the top is to just, you know what, be a part of every single hand. If you're involved all the time, it's hard to get around you.
Yeah, Jocelyn is actually a part of my local club, and I think they can sometimes play pretty conservatively, but I mentioned that sometimes the league takes aggression, and I think they took that to heart. But that call rate is high. I think that has to be one of the highest in the league, if not the highest.
It's certainly close. It's gotten to the point where it's hard to look at all of the stats at once across all the leagues now that we have what 5,000 people, I think, approximately in the ARML. I actually could look this up pretty easily.
I
Let's see.
forget. There's I think a bit over 100 actual like participants. So it is hard to keep track of this of the stats and play styles and tendencies of everyone. But
And and yeah, I mean, other than the EV and the massive win rates and the tiny deal-ins, is there anything else that really jumps out at you from the top half of B3 here?
um not quite, though. It is interesting to see, with us continually commenting on EV and how determinate it is of ranking, that we see some, it's not everything, clearly, as there's some players up here who have managed who have managed to find their wins despite not having the same like crazy win and deal in um numbers that the other players do. So whether that's strategy or it would be hard to say what it is without seeing the games. But
And Michael mentioned looking at what is to come, and it's important to remember here with these 11 promotion spots right now. The cut line for promotions is right around plus 40. The final promotion being Gaetano here at plus 39.1. But even just one really good first could get you all the way from 23rd to 11th right now. And 23rd is Stephen L at negative 16.6. And I have seen and experienced first places that are more than 55 points. So even though we cannot see the bottom half of the division score-wise, I mean, I would say everyone all the way down to probably 26th maybe at Cassandra would be still have a shot at this promotion if they're able to turn things around in the second half and really fight forward.
oh, absolutely, yeah. It's still this ranking, like, or this leaderboard could shift a lot. Some of the other ones in the higher divisions seem like they may be a little harder to shake up, and we'll see that coming up.
And on our way there, why don't we look at another two quick clips from B3 here. some incredibly exciting action. I believe we have a couple of sort of bonkers sumos coming up here.
No, Dora 7.
Door 7, yeah.
Yeah. Well, they would have won, but they would have lost.
Yeah, right. You have to throw it back, though. You key your foodie to now if you switch.
Yeah, it looks fine.
Still 2 souths left, right?
Yeah.
In the wall. Where are they?
Oh, Itsu. This is Genbutsu.
Oh,
This game is so-
Rack 'em up. Sanbaimon.
Oh, it's Dora 7.
Yeah, the 3-pin at the bottom.
Yeah, we said that.
And this Sanbaimon really just turned this game on its head. I think there actually are rarer than Yakumons in the league and in general. So that's why we're also celebrating that one here.
Yeah, it's just so hard to hit that Sanbaimon, because the only way to get a Sanbaimon is to have 11 or 12 Han, and hitting that margin without also jumping up to 13 because you have 27 Dora is kind of difficult. And I mean, we had I think the most Sanbaimon we've seen in any one day in the ARML is 1, and just like a week ago we had 3 Yakumon in the same day.
That's right.
That is, of course, an edge case, but still, it does point out how Sanbaimons are more rare, which is part of why we chose this one. And you can actually see that choosing to wait on the Dora and forcing the Chanta here is what enabled this to get all the way to 11 Han. Would have been just a Paimon otherwise.
I assume that Ryan had been counting up these Han because he did actually switch. He was 6, 7, 8 up until a couple of draws before this, and there was a switch to the 9. So on that end of the second row discard there. So that did push him up into the Sanbaimon territory. But we can move on to the next clip.
Yes, and the next clip is one that I remember well because I do believe I was here for this one. Right before this clip starts, I believe Korak made a statement about the One-So looking incredibly dangerous, and it turned out to be, though, not in the way he suspected.
Well, there's another one of those 4.
There's still 4
One-So is
more.
a very aggressive push. Oh, that's scary. And,
Another con!
What did we just see? Con into Rinshon!
That's insane!
Oh my god. And that will be first place moving to South 3 as Michael pulls the Rinshon Baimon. Well, there's another one of those 4.
Rinshons are always just so much fun to see.
Oh, they're the hype, like maybe aside from Yakuman, they're the hypest wins on these streamed games. So, and that, well, let's see, 2, 4, 6. He didn't need the Rinshon for Baimon, but still, it's still exciting to see.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't a lot of winning tiles left, so might have needed the Rinshon just for the win to actually occur. There were only 2 4-so left.
Oh, that's true.
Probably would have found a 4 or 7 somewhere in the wall with only 13 tiles left, but you never know.
Maybe not. Yeah, maybe that actually did need to happen for that win. So,
and it was spectacular, and I mean, those were 3 clips, but obviously with the just staggering amount of games that are happening in B3 every 2 weeks, we could show dozens and dozens more, but we are limited on time, so we should move on to B2 here. And now we're actually able to see the whole of B2 on one little sheet, as well as what should be pointed out with the schedule. So from here on out, all of the divisions are going to be building towards a snake round in the 6th session, and that is arranged by placement so that you are competing directly with the people who, you are trying to jostle for position with. If you're towards the bottom of the league, you're going to tend to be against other people towards the bottom. If you're towards the top, you're going to tend to be against other people towards the top. It really allows you to stake your claim and prove that you should be where you are.
I'm looking at the standings here and trying to see what jumps out at me. I think this also is, well, actually there's quite a gap between 15 and 16 here. So for the players who are close to the demotion zone, it's gonna be a real fight to get out of there. Because you're looking at, oh, I need to get like 50, 60 points to feel safe here, or if not more. Um,
Yeah, I mean, we see that Edwin there with that auspicious minus 66.6. I mean, that's only 1.6 points out of demotion. And I believe if there is a tie, then it's based on whoever has the most firsts is the first tiebreaker.
I can't remember if it's most first or if it's top half, bottom half. And then, funnily enough, if it were top half, bottom half, that still wouldn't decide it here. But
Really, as you said, to feel better about things, you just want to get away from that demotion line entirely. And that also means if you're in, say, 12th to 15th, if you're anyone from Ash to Carl, you really want to make sure you don't drop at all. Because right now you might feel pretty good, pretty safe away from the demotion line, but one halfway bad session could easily put you within a fourth of dropping down into B3, which, there's nothing wrong with being in B3, but it just feels bad to demote. From experience, I can say demoting is
yes,
not fun, and you want to avoid it.
yeah, I think the other thing that's notable here is that unlike some of the other divisions, there is no like runaway leader here. And even the promotion line at around plus 40 is pretty achievable still. It may move up and probably will move up somewhat over the next 3 sessions, but right now it's still looking fairly accessible for a good number of the players here. So
Yeah, that is a very good point, especially with Lynn being closer to Joshua than Edwin is to Molly. So right at those lines is incredibly tight in both directions. And let's pull up the stats here and see what everything looks like. You can actually tell that some of those games have already been played earlier today.
oh yeah, we did see a couple 14s on
Yeah,
that
we see
list.
one at the
So
top there with Joe and Shane. In particular. Well, Joe, Shane, and Pio. We have 3 14s all in the promotion zone right now, which actually might affect what things look like. And here the EVs are a little bit less informative than they were in B3. We have a lot more of a smattering, and there's no big break. Like, you don't see anybody who's just absolutely dominating, winning huge hands and never dealing in. I mean, there's only one person with a single-digit deal-in rate in all of B2. Now, obviously, single-digit deal-in is very rare, but to have Carl with that 6.9%, and Carl has had a very low deal-in percentage
yeah,
his entire time in the ARM.
yeah, I was going to say I think these are total stats, I believe. And so that's going to carry over Carl's very low deal-in rate from the spring season. Which I think hovered at like 5 or something like that through the whole thing. But that's definitely helping out that EV there.
Yeah, it jumped up dramatically from like 4% to 7% right at the end of the spring season.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it doubled catastrophically. But we do see here that the win rates are very much important. I mean, all of those dark red win rates, which means they are towards the top of the standings, they're all in the promotion zone other than Michael towards the bottom. And, well, that's just because the EV is so low. If you're dealing in, too much and into too big of hands, then it doesn't matter how much you win. But towards the top, even with big dealing rates, I mean, 19% is not small for Joe there. But if you're winning 5% more and winning significantly bigger hands, it'll still get you over the hump.
Yeah, and one thing, I think the number that stands out to me most here is Riley's 28% win rate there. But it looks like they were mostly, well, not cheap hands, but I think we're seeing a decent amount of cheap-ish or like slightly cheaper hands, so that's not taking the EV to, huge there, but that's still, I think that amount of a win rate is still going to put you in a great position in a lot of games. So,
And an average deal in below 4,000 is also incredible.
yeah, no, that's also doing him a lot of favors.
Yeah, I
Um,
believe Light Pink Yoshi, or Max, as we will see later in A1, gave a lecture at one point talking about how in tournaments and leagues he really prefers to play for cheaper hands sometimes, speed things along, maybe tilt people a little bit. And if you're winning a lot of small hands like that and getting other people off their game, keeping them from being able to build strong hands, then that puts you in a position to take over.
yeah, definitely, and 5 wins is putting him in a great position right now. Um, Other than that, I don't know if anything else jumps out at me. Other than that, we have another like one high over 50% call right here. But I don't know if that's how that's shaking out for Ryan there. So
Yeah, it is very close to that promotion line. 20 away is really just a good second. So right in the thick of things, even if it looks like his name's pretty far down the list. And as you said, nothing else is really popping out here. So why don't we move from B2 to B1? Hey, this B1's where we live. We're
it is
home
where
now.
we live.
Yeah, and we actually see here with these standings, unfortunately, Dakota is not playing anymore. So that fifth demotion slot, Dakota's out. So that fifth demotion slot moves up to Garrick. So right now, Garrick would be the first person demoted at just minus 25.9. That is not a very deep score to get promoted
It
out
is
of.
not, and what we saw happen with A1 in the spring, where a certain distribution in the negatives made the demotion line creep up. I think with that withdrawal, we saw we're seeing the demotion line also creep up here a little bit. But there are only 5 slots, so maybe it won't be too bad.
Yeah, but once again, we have things just being so tight. If we go from third place, from Andres in third place, all the way down to Josh in 17th, that is less than 100 points. Or I guess it's 100.3. 100.3 points from third place all the way to 17th. And we have seen people make 100-point jumps in single sessions before. It's
Oh
always
yeah,
wild when it
it
happens.
definitely happens. It could be like 3 firsts and a second, or even maybe even like 2 firsts and 2 seconds if they're really decisive wins.
So B1 incredibly tight here. And Andrew, Alex, and Aaron all still have a chance to move up. And we'll see if you and Alec are able to hold on to those massive leads. But the big story for B1 is going to be everything happening in the middle, what with it being so tight with so many games still left to play.
Yeah, it is this B1. I mean, there was a prediction that B1 was going to be fierce this season, and so far I think that it has been. Um, so we'll
Having
see how that plays out.
having played a lot of these people already, yes, it is fierce. There's a lot of absurd people lurking around in this pool. But let's check out the statistics here. And once again, no huge. Oh, never mind.
There
That
is
was the
one.
other one. There's one huge EV, and of course it is Alec who is far and away in the lead here.
Really just kind of, from a statistical standpoint, dominating B1, just as he dominated B2, his pool last season.
Other than that, things are much more evenly spread out here. I mean, we see people with 700 EVs all the way down to 16th place, which, you know, is not entirely unexpected given how close 3rd through 17th are.
Yeah, and it's I'm wondering if, as the league continues, the stat sheets are already complicated, like enough to look at as is, but I think we're going to see sometimes that the total stats may end up diverging from like the season stats so far. So like people who did really well in spring season may look like they're underperforming this season, you know. I think that's just how it's going to happen. If you are looking at, actually, for people who have been here since the beta league, there may be 2 older seasons worth of stats in this screen, right?
Yeah, I feel like that's the case for, well, a lot of people here. I mean, I've got 56 games there. Wow, I have like double the games you have. I'm realizing now looking at this sheet. But we have several people with above 50 or with 60 games here. You know, if they played in, especially all those 60s are people who not only played in the beta league but also played in the playoffs in the beta league season.
Right.
And that's going to be a lot more common as we move up the divisions, since it takes so much time to promote, although much quicker than it would in other leagues of a similar style.
In terms of the stats on the right-hand side of the screen, not quite as extreme as some of the other examples we've seen. We see Travis in 15th with his trademark closed hand strategy being very noteworthy. And we see some assertive play from Ada, Garrick, and Andrew.
Yeah, which is exactly what I would expect from all three of them. I played with Andrew quite a bit at the New York Ricci Open, and very much the kind of player who is going to fluctuate with the tiles, as you can see here with that very high participation rate. Likes to push things. Ada also has quite the reputation for pushing and winning huge hands. And Garrick, if you're in the Discord, comments on a lot of what would you do's and gives a lot of opinions, which also tend to be aggressive, and you can kind of see that reflected in the stats. I'm sure all three of them will probably race through these standings, as honestly I expect everyone in the bottom half of B1 to do. All of those players in the bottom half of B1 are entirely capable of being in the top half of B1 if they just have better high pie.
Yeah.
So I
And-
imagine this sheet will look entirely different 3 weeks from now.
Yeah, and then on the other hand, you've got players like Matthew who play just a very strong conservative game. You know, who are also performing strong. So there's a mix of styles here for sure. I mean, every division has one. It's just I know these players a little bit better. So
Yeah, especially having played them. I do. You talk about a mix of styles. I am right next in the standings to Rachel, and I have one of the lowest participation rates in the entire ARML.
oh, I didn't actually see. Actually, yes, that's true.
And Rachel is another player famous for just going with absolutely massive wins and can kind of get into. I remember commentating a match with Rachel where I think she both like won a Yakuman and dealt into a Sanbaimon. Just one of those absurd games that was all over the place. Very, very fun player to watch.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
And speaking of wild big wins, I believe our clip for B1 is one such win Although I think was it Travis who got this one? Yes. We will see a nice big win from Travis here, and you could probably guess what it is already, seeing the tiles beneath us here.
Could you see a quick Tanya on the left also, just try to end it all.
Yeah, Tempo waiting on 5. There's the Sumo Suanko!
Dealer Suanko! 16,000 all, and that puts him straight into commanding firsts. Wow.
Wow. Everyone else at the table is just going, what just happened?
Honestly, the first thing that stands out to me here is seeing your name pop up as Toyman, and just how much that must have stung.
You might notice I'm Tempai over there. I called Ricci. On this hand, and it got stolen. But I mean, obviously the better hand won here. Wasn't I did not quite have an Oyasu Anko. I did win an Oyasu Anko in the next round, actually, so I've been at 2 tables with dealer for concealed triplets so far this season, which is just absurd. But I mean, I remember this hand pretty well as being kind of an edge of massive tilt for me.
Yeah, it's totally understandable. I think that's the natural outcome of what just happened here.
As a commentator sitting on this side of it, though, incredibly exciting and so cool to get to see this on stream. So rarely are we able to capture those moments. And being able to nab the Suanko here, and I do believe we have another streamed Yakuman coming later in one of our future divisions. It's just really special to be a part of those moments. Actually, Kamicha was Tempai as well.
Oh,
So
yep.
there were 3 Tempais at this table, and then all of a sudden the Yakuman comes out.
So unlikely, but yeah, you have to root for it from our from the perspective of anyone who's not, you, Peter, and Andrew. You have to root for it. So.
And with that, let's move on to A2, moving up into the A League, starting to get into the cream of the crop here. And A2 has sort of a wild dynamic, not quite as wild as A1, but we still have a very interesting dichotomy of scores here, with Tristan being at negative 58.7 in 10th, and then people kind of declining from there. And the top half of the league kind of going down to negative 6.9 with Lucas.
Yeah, it does seem like it is kind of. Well, that's the most obvious split point, but then, well, this has changed already a little bit because 2 A2 games happened earlier this evening, but as of the time of this snapshot of the leaderboards, Kaz and Zilong are also kind of ahead of the pack here by a decent amount.
I mean, they are just absolutely crushing. And Zilong, we have seen absolutely steady, incredible play the entire time they have been in the ARML. So this is not all that surprising, although it is very cool to see them continue to perform well, even as their competition gets better. And Kaz actually demoted from A1 into A2 this season. And we can see is coming back with a vengeance to take their spot back in A1 and to work their way back up.
It certainly seems like that, and I helped commentate a game with both Kaz and Zalong in it for the last session, and the level of play that I was witnessing, the dynamic between at that table, but especially between those 2 players, got me a little scared for if I end up in A2 for the fall season, because that's the it was scary, the level of play, I would say, that I saw there.
it's super cool how you can see those improvements be made as you look at the divisions. And it's so cool that the ARML is giving everyone this opportunity to grow their own game. While we have this schedule up here, I want to point out just a couple of matchups. So we're talking about people who ranked down from A1 last season. The other 3 players that ranked down out of A1 are Lucas, who is currently in 9th, right in the middle of the pack. So still very much within reach of getting back into that promotion zone, what with 7 promotions. And then we have June and Dustin, both of whom are in the bottom half. And for June especially, if we look at their 5th session here, June is going up against Lucas, Anthony, and Aaron. So Lucas is right in the middle. Aaron is way up at the top, and Anthony is also in the middle. So something that I'm going to point out a couple times, especially once we get into A1, where things are a lot more starkly divided, is that if you want to increase your position, you want to take points away from those ahead of you. And for June, that Session 5 matchup is huge. You're facing 2 people who are right in the middle of the standings in Anthony and Lucas. And if you're able to take a good amount of points from them, you'll end up at about the same point total and effectively try and swap positions with them. So it'll be interesting to see how June handles that Session 5 matchup. That will be kind of their big opportunity to move up the standings and keep from falling from A1 to B1 over the course of two consecutive seasons, which Dustin will also be avoiding, but has slightly less interesting matchups to get there. Most matchups are just going to be normal due to randomness, but June, the way the groups got dealt here is really giving June a big chance in that 5th session. So that'll be something to watch out for. And I'd also like to point out that Table 1 in Session 4, that is going to be an absolutely incredible matchup. We see Zilong, who we've already talked about, Crow, who is another just absolutely amazing player. Blew B1 out of the water last season and is now once again at the top of A2. Aaron, who is 1 spot above Crow in the standings, another incredible player. And John, who is also a good player and is going to be fighting to take all of those top dogs' points. So A2, Table 1 will be a table to watch out for.
Unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to stream it, but 2 of those matches of that table you were just talking about happened just before this stream today.
I didn't even realize.
Yeah, so John, Zilong, Crow, and Aaron have already played 2 of their 4 games for this session, and I happened to watch them, and yes, they were. I would suggest if you're looking for some interesting and intense mahjong play, and if you're a part of the league and can go back and look at those logs, I recommend it because it is very interesting to watch. Aaron did end up pulling out a win, and is now in 2nd place in the leaderboards if we had the updated one. So.
Oh, and we might actually see that on this next screen coming up right now, because it might be more updated since we saw the full teams for B3. We're not going to see them here, but that's okay. That's okay. Oh, we do see them, although we just see the 13s, which is kind of funny.
Oh yeah, this is only after the first game, I think. Yeah. Okay.
But that's all right. It still gives us all the information we want to see. And we've brought up EB several times, and there's no huge EBs, but this is almost a perfect order from top to bottom.
It's very close. The correlation is strong in this division. I think maybe the strongest out of all of them.
What particular stat lines jump out of you for A2 here?
I think Zilong's almost 30% Reachy rate does. Compared to... Oh, it just updated. So there we go.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Jeremy, for updating the screen here. So a 28.7% Reachy rate out of a 46% participation rate. So another not quite as extreme, but another closed hand player. Compared to Aaron, who's the most assertive, according by one metric, the most assertive player in the division here with a more call heavy style.
Although 40.9% is
It's
not a
it's
massive
not
fall.
extreme. It's just the highest in this particular division. But I don't think 40 or 41% is even particularly high in general.
Actually, now that you bring it up, this is fascinating. The participation rates in A2 are so low. Like, these participation rates feel like home to me. Like all these 44s and 46s and 48s that we see. There's a 45 with June and a 46 and 48 at the bottom. Yeah, these are compared to the other division. These participation rates are especially low, and the call rates are especially low. I mean, if you look at the
Yeah.
A2 average for call is 30.4, and the league average is 33.6.
That's significant, yeah. That's, I mean, for average, averaged over everything, 3% is significant. I do think that maybe what's happening is that you start to see one of the differences as you move up into A2 from B1 is, I think you're seeing players who have a more finely tuned push pull, and I admit that's something that I need to work on myself.
Often the different rooms in both Tenho and Mahjong Soul will be described by what strategies you get better at. So people say, like, in Silver Room, you're mostly working on efficiency. Gold Room, you're getting better at efficiency, getting better at building higher valued hands and starting to work on defense. In Jade Room, you start to, get better at defense and then work on push fold. And you can also see that walking up the divisions as Michael has said in the ARML. So if you happen to be watching games, then I would say that is something to pay attention to based on which division you are in. Really look. If you're watching A2, really start to look at that push fold judgment and look at the defense and the Mawashi being played there, and you can probably learn quite a bit.
That's another thing that I've noticed when commenting A2 games is that the Mawashiing, like the dance to keep Tenpai when half your hand is lit up is a sight to see.
And we also see no one here has less than 56 games, which is also going to be the case for A1. These are all players that have been in the ARML since its founding. And with that,
since no one has had time to make it up here yet if they started after the beta league. So.
And with that, let's see ourselves another Yakuman, why don't we?
Yes, let's.
I've played against Kevin several times at this point, and this win very much feels like a Kevin win to me. I played against Kevin in New York and in A2 last season, and he just has this propensity for absolutely popping off. And in this situation where things were so tight, it blew this game wide open.
Right, this last Hatsu is coming out. It does not look like this Kokushi is Tenpai. No one knows.
Oh man.
Where is it?
Well, they're gonna notice Sumo Gary eventually.
Yeah, there have been a couple of those though. The West comes out. Here's the Hatsu! Oh!
Oh!
It's the Kokushi!
Kokushi!
I am so glad we caught this on stream. It's to Kevin. And Kevin is going to be at 66,000 after this is all said and done.
It's so stealthy and so unlikely.
Yeah, if you're Crow in this situation, you probably expect that you're just killing this Kokushi. Like, you're like, oh, this is the final Hatsu. There's no way they're Tenpai. I mean, look at those discards. Not a single terminal or honor to be seen.
Yeah, and as someone else pointed, so no overflow, thrice cut Hatu, and then as someone else pointed out, Crow also has 3 pay in their hand. So
Oh, that's true.
like the chances are just astronomically low that this was Kokoshi Tenpai. But not zero.
The odds are very rarely zero in Mahjong, as we get shown time and time again. You'll say to yourself, there's no way I lose this hand, or there's no way this deals in, or there's no way this hand wins. And Mahjong likes nothing more than to prove us all wrong.
Well said.
And with that, let's move on to A1, the top league in the ARML, the fight for league champion. And boy howdy, does A1 look like an absolute mess to me. This I would never have expected like last season A1 was absolutely bonkers because the cut line was at like 0.9. Like just incredibly high, because very unfortunately for June kind of took all of the big negatives and they were all concentrated in one place. This season, we have a totally bimodal distribution, which for those of you who did not major in math in college means that we have 2 big peaks where all of the numbers are. And we see that there's a big peak right around 110 in the top half of the division, and a big peak right around negative 110 in the bottom half of the division.
Yeah. In addition to there being those 2 peaks, as Korax pointed out to me, there's actually 2 significant gaps. Here between 7 and 8, there's a 100-point gap, and then between 10 and 11, there's a pretty significant, like 68-point gap or so. Like 60, mid 60s or something like that. So these players are grouped up a little irregularly here.
And this sort of situation is where the matchups in the second half of the season become pretty crucial, because if you're playing a bunch of people who are already in your range in the rankings. So, for example, I wrote a couple down here. I just have to scroll up and find where I said it. If we look at Session 4, Table 2, we've got Vincent, Luce, Amy, and Beechin there. Well, Vincent, Luce, and Beechin are 3rd, 4th, and 5th. They can't really gain all that much playing each other, right? Any one of them could climb up to 1st, which is obviously huge and very important. Whoever comes out on top from that table, unless it is Amy, who is currently right in the middle of the standings, will likely be in 1st or 2nd. But you can't really make your position all that much better, really, because you're already next to all these people. You can make your individual matchups better, but not your overall ranking that much better. Whereas for Amy at that table, if Amy's able to come away stealing a lot of points from those 3 players, which she is certainly capable of, if I remember correctly, Amy is the person who won the Richinomi Open this summer, so she certainly has that talent. She could leap up leaps and bounds. Even if she's still an 8th, if she's able to take points away from those 3, I mean, at the very least, she could switch places with all 3 of them. She could push all 3 of them below her and end up in, what would that be, 5th? And drastically change what those 3 players' scores look like, but they can't actually get that much off of each other. And this is especially crucial for Vincent, who's in the exact same situation in Session 5, facing Simon, Max, and Ming Ko. Simon also in the middle, but Ming Ko and Max are at 6th and 7th, also at plus 90. So if you're Vincent, you're looking at this matchup and you're playing, obviously everyone in A1 is a next level Mahjong player, but when you're facing 4 of the people who are in this kind of top 7, and you're the 5th out of that, you're facing almost everybody who's gone plus 90 in A1. you really have to be focused and tuned in to not lose a lot of ground. But if Vincent's able to capitalize on that, we could very easily see Vincent take a very strong lead for first. It'll all be how he competes with the other people at the top here.
Yeah, and we'll have to see if that situation changes a little bit before session 5 happens, but it may, because you still have 4 games between now and then, but it could end up exactly as you're predicting. We'll have to see.
And the bottom half of the division works the exact same way here. If we look at session 4, table 3, Huang, Nathaniel, Andre, and Mingko. Mingko, obviously, towards the top here, but Huang, Nathaniel, and Andre, all 3 of them are in the bottom 5. So it's going to be very hard to gain actual rank here. Like, even if Huang, Nathaniel, or Andre were to come out significantly ahead, at best, they're probably going to be 11th. Now, we have seen Huang put on wild plus 150 performances
That's true,
in
yeah.
specific sessions. But, we actually have an update here. And things look, let me check real quick, just as whack as they already looked. Huang still in 12th. Korak has moved slightly up, still in the middle. Amy has moved slightly up, still in the middle with the single games they've played.
We can see this is only updated from one game. So Arthur Korak got a win and Steve took a loss here. So that's what will have changed the standings.
But this is kind of what I mean. It's going to be the way to change your rank is to trade points with the people who are in a different part of the rankings than you. If you're at the bottom, you want to take points from the people at the top. If you're at the top, you want to take points from people at the bottom. If you're in the middle, you're just taking points from everybody here. And no matter who you take from, you're probably going to increase your position significantly if you're Arthur, Amy, or Simon, the only 3 players kind of in the center.
All right.
One more matchup I want to point out is Session 5, Table 1. If you have the chance to watch that, will also be pretty significant with Oliver, Luce, Andre, and Jeremy. Oh, is that the one I meant to point out? It might not be. Hold on.
Yeah, you may need to consult your notes. And sorry for the slight technical issue here. We asked Jeremy for some live updates, and it is a little difficult to rearrange the screen in just the right way with OBS.
And 5-1 is what I wanted to point out. Oliver, Andre, and Jeremy will all be fighting each other in Session 5. So just like Vincent was in this situation facing 4 of the people at the very, very top, Andre's at the situation facing 4 of the people at the very, very bottom. So if Andre's able to come out ahead in these next 2 sessions, that can do a lot to keep Andre out of the demotion zone. But if Andre is not able to capitalize right now, it's going to be incredibly difficult for Andre to get out of this demotion zone. So Andre is going to be a person to watch over the next 2 sessions with the matchups here in the bottom half of A1.
Right. Yep. Now let's take a look at the stats and see what the stats are for this crazy division.
Oh yeah, I'm excited to see this.
And
once again, we have the expected values pretty much lining up the way you'd expect. All of these expected values, you might also notice, are pretty high. In a lot of other divisions, that expected value going all the way down to, say, Jeremy and Nathaniel there in the 500s would be sort of middle of the pack. I mean, the A1 division average expected value is 694. The league average is 479. That is an absolutely bonkers jump.
it is a huge difference. And like you said, even all the way up to in the B leagues, you're seeing, way lower numbers for the averages than, so as well as having a strong correlation to rank within divisions, you can also see a strong correlation between them. So
And also a lot of fighting in A1. We made the comment in A2 that there was an incredibly abnormal amount of 40 participation rates in the 40% range. Here, there is only 2. Almost everyone, excluding 3 people, are in the 50%. And most of them, or not most, but several of them in the high 50%, as far as participation rate goes.
yeah, it looks like there
Very
are
little
3, but yeah, it is interesting to see that there seems to they are kind of like the values. The conservative players are like mid 40s, and the assertive players are like 58. It's there's less variance in the participation up here.
And something to point out, we're talking about there being less variance across many games, but that doesn't mean that there can't be an incredible amount of variance in a single game. For example, both Eric and Jeremy have been subject to pretty brutal single Hanchan, where they ended a game at minus 20 or minus 30,000 and took minus 65 or minus 70 points in a single Hanchan.
Yeah, that's really rough. And that's just going to skew where you're at on the leaderboards by a disproportionate amount.
But look at these deal-in rates too. I really want to point out. The league average is 14%. The league average in the division average for A1 is 12.1. And I mean, there's 2 players significantly above 13%. There is a 14.4 that I missed for a second in Amy there. But Huang has 15.7, and Huang also has a 25.6% win rate. So just a very aggressive style. And then Andre with the 16.1% deal in. Other than that, though, the deal ins are just in such a solidly low state for the most part here.
Yeah, it's interesting because in the other leagues you'll see like, oh, this player's pretty aggressive. They have like an 18% deal-in rate or something. But no, here aggressive means 14. It's really seeing like the improved defensive play while still seeing, what aggressive plays look like is very interesting.
And I do also want to point out, just as a fun note here, that of those top 7 players who are above 90 currently, 3 of them were in A2 last season. Ming Ko, Luce, and Vincent were all A2 players last season and have come into A1 strong and are definitely showing that they deserve to be here. Especially Vincent, who ended up getting that last slot into A1 because of someone going on hiatus or
Oh
dropping
yeah, I
out.
remember that. Yeah.
And so Vincent just barely scraped by. It looked like Vincent was forced out by Nathaniel by literally 100 points. But ended up getting in anyway and is proving that he deserves to be here.
Yeah, interesting to see that he has such a high placement with 7 seconds. I guess that's the power of just solid, steady play.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, 7 seconds, only 1/3 and 1/4. Like if you look at Luce, who is probably one of the most consistent players in the entire ARML, she has 2 firsts, 5 seconds, 5/3, 0 fourths. So riding almost exactly at that 2.5 placement average, what with mostly seconds and thirds. And Vincent is only 3 points higher than she is, with 10 first and second place finishes and 2 third and fourth place finishes.
Right.
So that's where we talked earlier about you can't play League the way you play ladder. It's very important that your thirds be good thirds and your seconds be good seconds. You got to work with the UMA. You can't just avoid last place, although obviously the fewer last places you have, the better. As we see, everybody with 2 or fewer last places is in this plus 90 range in A1.
Yeah, other than that, the issue with finding things to comment about on these stats is that they're all just so good.
Yeah, all the way down to the bottom, they're so good.
But I think we are slightly past the hour here, so maybe we see our last clip and close it out.
That sounds good to me. Oh, I remember this. I was about to say I don't remember what our A1 clip is, but nah, I remember. I remember now. Ming Ko up to some shenanigans here.
In the chat
Oh, there we
Not bad.
go.
It's 4 out of 10.
You
You got a con now. Dora Khan.
Come on.
There you go.
Holy
And Sumo!
It's a rin shot on the 7-bean Tanki!
Oh my lord.
Holy
Mamma
cow!
mia. 12,000
What on earth? Rinshan, Sumo, Dora 4 to drop Korak below 30k. I mean, that's just absolutely nasty. Drawing the 4th Dora, calling closed con on the Dora, and then getting Rinshan on the Tonki weight. And that full-on, as Jeremy points out behind the scenes, was also Korak's out. I remember talking about this moment with Korak after the match, and Korak just being like, it is not my day. This is awful.
It clearly wasn't. And not only was it a Rinshan on the Tonki weight, that was the last one.
The final 7-peen in the wall.
Which, yeah, I think maybe I caught this one too, and people were blowing up at this one because it's just so ridiculous to win, to take the game like this, because this is all last. This is what a way to they were only 700 points away from winning. They didn't need to win this hard, but they sure did. So
yeah, and importantly, making it to where 2 people are below 30,000 and 2 people are above 30,000. That's where the UMA is super, super important. It helps to drop your competition down below that 30k threshold. And notice that also at this table is Loose. And despite that massive Rinshan from Minko, Loose was still above 30k. And that's what we mean. That's why Luce is as high up in the standings as she is because very rarely are her seconds going to be negatives.
that's a good point.
Even when absurdity happens. But
Well, part of the game is defending yourself against, absurdity, having a shield against the slings and arrows of fate, perhaps.
I wish I had such a shield. I feel much more just tossed around in by fate's whim.
Not fate, outrageous fortune, and I think outrageous fortune is what happened to Minko here. So
you do end up on both sides of it, as as I stated earlier. I've been on both sides of those dealer Yakuman as well. So you just got to take it when you can and avoid it when you're not the person getting it as much as you can. But as we head into these final 3 sessions of the summer season, what are you looking forward to most, Michael?
that's a good question. Well, I have to admit, I'm looking forward to staying to some more wins, I hope, on my end. As I'm sure you are. I think that goes without saying. But I'm interested in playing as many more of the B1 players as possible. My next table, I've got both Claire and Rachel, and I'm those games have to be exciting. There's no way they don't end up exciting. So
yeah, that table will be an absolute hoot, I'm sure. I my favorite time of every season is going into session 6. Just everything gets so tense. Everybody's playing for keeps. The stakes are so high. And especially in A1 and A2, and B3 for that matter, being pretty tight as well. I'm just fascinated to see how things develop. There's so many different ways that these these next 2 sessions can go, so many ways people can set themselves up for success or put themselves at risk of falling, and that fight to prevent from just descending into the madness of mahjong and being consumed by it is a lot of fun to watch as a commentator.
It
But
definitely is. I do think that this season will only get more exciting. Well, we can hope that it will. We can keep up the momentum of we've seen some exciting moments here already, and hopefully there will be just as many for the rest of this season. And as we are being reminded here by our director, to mention to if you are interested in joining ARML, signups are still open for the fall season until September 19th. So if you sign up now, you can be a part of Armel's next season.
yeah, and if you would like to do so, as Michael says, sign up for Armel's next season, just go to our homepage at AmericanRicci.org, which you can find both on the screen here and also in the comments of the Twitch channel. Also, for anybody who would like to see more English Mahjong content, we have an absolutely massive storehouse of it now at tinyurl.com/ARMLYT on YouTube. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel there. And there is just so much mahjong to learn from. We've commented so many games. We have such a talented crew of commentators. It is such a joy to be a part of. And I mean, every time I commentate, I learn something from the people that I'm with. So I'm sure most of y'all will be able to get something from them too. If you want to know when we are going live with a stream, be sure to follow us here on Twitch by clicking that little heart, or follow us on Twitter at American Ricci.
One last comment I want to make, because I don't think this is often advertised, but it's one of my favorite parts. So, in addition to being able to play games against some of of America's best Ricci Mahjong players in a cool league format, you also get to join our Discord if you join the league, and it's a really fun place full of interesting discussions and camaraderie. So
yes, the What Would You Do channel especially always has just such incredible commentary there. And as Jeremy is pointing out to us behind the scenes once again with those salient points, several of our players are going to be competing in the World Ricci Championships I believe it's in Austria this year. So be sure to cheer them on. Keep your ears open for updates on how they're doing. Hopefully we get a chance to, obviously we won't, we're not going to show any of that on stream, but hopefully we get to update y'all at the end of streams on how people are doing. I don't remember everyone who's going. I know Steve is going. I feel like Kenyon was going. There are several players in the ARML who are going to be facing the best Ricci players in the entire world, and that's super exciting for them. Kind of stressful, especially in this time. Traveling's rough, but keep them in your thoughts. Cheer for them with in your hearts, and be on the lookout to hear about how they do. And again, if you join the ARML, you'll probably hear about some of the wild things that happen to them in our Discord. And so with that, this is the close of another fun stream with the American Ricci Mahjong League. I am Ennui. I have been joined tonight by Michael, and thank you again to Jeremy for making all of this run super smoothly. Thank you, the viewer, for watching, and we look forward to seeing you for some Mahjong action very, very soon. Have a wonderful night, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in. Have a great Monday night.